what we try to do is be as broad as church as possible. So one of the things that we said at the start was that we wanted to have as many available recovery pathways as possible. Because one of the things that that you've always seen traditionally, particularly when people go off to, and I don't want to use rehab, but that's probably near to kind of, if you had to explain to somebody what we were, you'd probably say like a rehab, but that's open to the wider community. But one of the things that you see with rehabs is that people go off and they're either A, a 12-step model, or B, it's a CBT behavioural sort of based model. But particularly with the 12-step stuff, that if you don't buy into that concept of God or a higher power, which is incredibly difficult for a struggling addict to believe in, because, you know, we'll have sat there thousands of times before and said, dear God, please, if you exist, please don't let this happen. Do you know what I mean? And we'll have begged and pleaded and you know, been crying out for divine intervention for years, and it never happens. And when you go through addiction and also the things that underpin your addiction, so trauma and that, in any case, it can be very difficult to believe in that God exists, because it's a cruel world we live in, David, and particularly for a lot of the guys who go through addiction, they've been traumatised from a young age, and, you know, there's not a lot of choice involved in this. I think that's one of the big common misconceptions about addiction, is people think this is a choice thing, and it's not. For the vast majority of us, it's self-management of an underlying condition. It's self-medication, or it's just using a drink or drug to move away from a set feeling for a period of time. Do you know what I mean? That's what it's about. But what we sort of saw was that if you didn't fit into this nice little bracket, so if you didn't buy into that God concept very early on, that just 12-step don't work for you, and you end up bouncing out of it very quickly. And kind of we saw that a lot, where I think at the time our only Welsh rehab that was being used primarily was Resurrecum, which was down Aberystwyth way. And they were like kind of full on Minnesota method. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, they literally beat you over the head with your addiction every day. So every day you had to come up with like three ways in which your addiction had like harmed or damaged your family or your friends, and then you had to share that with the group, you know, 3 times a day. So it was just like, and you just see, but I don't even know, some people went through there. So a great example for that is Winford. You know, obviously, you know, yeah, sort of Winford well. Yeah. Winford will sort of tell you one of Winford's big issues was ego. And this kind of place breaks that down. So that kind of stuff, you walk in with a big ego and this, that, and that kind of thing will suit you perfectly, and it'll bust all that stuff down. But probably also helps as well, because deep down inside of Winford, he's a Welsh chapel guy, you know, and this stuff is in the marrow, it's in your bones, so you can connect with that higher power, that religious, and it's not. We have to get that across in this bit. Now, 12-step recovery is not religious at all. It's just higher powered, but you will hear the word God quite often, and praying and all this sort of stuff. So like I say, just for a lot of people, just give them the horizon, they run the opposite way. So we kind of knew straight away then that what we need to do is we need to make sure that we can cover all the bases, so that if somebody comes to us, it's not just a one-size-fits-all. It's like, if you don't get this 12-step addiction model, then you're screwed. It doesn't work. So what we need to be able to do is say, well, come and try this. If this doesn't work, then you try this. If 12-step doesn't work, you try CBT, so via SMART. If SMART doesn't work, then we'll look at something like acceptance commitment therapy through moving on in my recovery. If that doesn't work, then we'll try something else. So again, it was because it was this recognition that no two addictions are the same unless it's the people who've gone through the same things. So no two recoveries are going to be the same. So what we wanted to do was, like I say, was to give people the best opportunity to get well. So that there's a whole variety and a whole menu of choices for them. But what we say when they first get there is, for the first 12 weeks, you've got to do everything. So for the first 12 weeks, you've got to do all of these groups. Because as addicts, again, we'll do this well. We'll walk in and, like, I've done it myself. I've walked into a room and I've sat there and I've sat opposite a guy and I don't like the trainers he's wearing. I'm thinking, oh, fucking hell, I don't like that, you know. So I'll look for it. And as an addict, especially when I was bang at it, we look for reasons to discount positive messages. Because what we don't want to hear is someone coming along and saying, oh, you want to change it. Like, I don't want to be doing this shit anymore. You know, there's another way out there. We don't want to hear that. We just want to keep doing what we're doing. So it was that sort of that ability to offer choice all the way through. But like I say to people, you've got to do everything for the first 12 weeks to give you a chance to make an informed choice, an informed decision. And then after 12 weeks, hopefully, you will then know you found your tribe, I think is the way that we sort of call it. You found your group, your collection of broken crayons, however you want to class yourself, but you found your group, the one that you fit in with. So whether that's one of the fellowships, CA, NA, AA. I mean, the interesting thing, again, is that sort of people lump 12-step recovery all in together, but it's so wide and so varied. I mean, just that it's a bit of a sort of funny one. It always reminds me a little bit of that, the sketch within the Frost Report with John Cleese and the two Ronnies, where AA looks down on CA, CA looks down on NA, NA looks down on AA. Do you know what I mean? Because there's all these very, very different, and there's a, AA is the purest form. We kind of know that, but CA's gone that way now. CA's gone very big book, very, do you know what I mean? Whereas with NA, obviously they've got their own set of traditions and their own basic texts and all that sort of stuff. So the whole thing, there's a different kind of vibe and different feel to all of them as you kind of go through, really. But again, it's just kind of meeting that. It's just offering that difference.